There's opportunity for growth.
There's lots of growth, nowhere to go but up. So that's just good to know. So I just want to acknowledge that. I can imagine it bring up. I find it just inserted. So we just name that from here. That you would choose the 0. I can imagine for you all, I'm making that up. And that's neither here nor there, we'll just let that be what it is. Okay. Anything that needs to be said about that?
That you gave us a 0?
Anything that you need to say?
I mean, I think it's kind of, it's a bummer, you know, you don't have a little bit of faith in your fellow commissioners.
Or even in you.
To be honest,
Let's not get into personal attacks. Let's vote, and then let's go with the vote at the time. We can go into half an hour of why I voted that way, but I don't think that'd be good enough.
But I did want to say, because it's a very strong statement, just wanted to acknowledge whether there was anything to it. And I think that probably captured the sentiment.
I'm going to say, I don't feel the trust. It feels like not a credible resource.
Well, I can comment to that. I sent a long email, 2-page email to the board president, making some points about the treaty, pointing out some errors and so forth. What I get is 0 feedback, but not even an acknowledgement of the email. So that leads me to not have trust in our board president, even though at one point I nominated him for board president and she refused.
Okay. So we're gonna let that be what it is. Okay. So what I'm gonna invite everyone to do, because it is a bold statement, so just acknowledging that when we make bold statements, we have to take responsibility for the impact on them, whatever they are. And so I'm just going to read right through this. It's data. We know this. And that will factor into and help you, each of you, understand where you're coming from when you're looking at how do you feel to fill this need, how do we look at this opportunity. Okay? So I'm just going to true. So let's move then to Greg.
What?
To Greg.
Oh.
To Mr. Greg Reed, who we have here to speak to us. He has, you all have his bio in front of you, and I think you've all had a chance to shake his hand. But he's definitely been focused on leading small community hospitals to success for a long time. Most recently, he helped to lead the affiliation of in general with King's Health. And so when, in fact, your position officially, what was your run for? July 1st. So this is brand new for him. And so wealth of knowledge, a long experience going through something similar to what you all are about to face. Not exactly the same. But our hope is that he will get out and he'll speak to this, and that will stimulate some questions for you. So an invitation to you as you're listening is, while he's talking, be jotting down your questions. Think about, hey, this triggers for me. What about for us? What are the questions they wish they asked that are relevant to what you all have?
So no questions for clarification or otherwise during the presentation. Is that what
Do
you
you want
said?
questions?
I'm talking along and you don't understand what I'm saying. Who's talking?
Yeah. So this is an exchange. And I'm also encouraging you to capture the questions so that we have them later, so that we have them for administration.
I think this is a preamble. What I'm going to go through here in the beginning is to give you a little bit of background of that organization and what led it into what it did. And then it's also going to walk you through the process. And I'll hit the graph will show you probably the 20,000 foot point of view. And I'll expand on each of the notes within the graph as to some of the details and things to consider as you're moving through this. This kind of goes back to the quadrant we were looking at. There were things that when we went into this that we knew, and there were things that we thought we knew. And then there were a lot of things that we didn't know what we didn't know. And hopefully by this presentation that keys a lot of thought process on your part to be asking some of those questions to be able to answer better those quadrants that she was asking earlier. So,
Can I ask you to clarify for all of us what Skagit County, what that county looks like, the cities that are in that county?
I'll do better than that. Okay. Well, I guess I have to point at the computer. There it is.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Skagit County is the county that comes from Snohomish County line to the Canadian border. District 304, which back in 1964 was Districts 3 and 4 merged and formed one of the largest districts in the state, 2,340 square miles, going to the Canadian border from Snohomish out to the beach line of Sandwich Island and Bayview and the Crescent and Cascade Mountains.
What's the total population?
Total population is just a little less than 60,000. So you've got a pretty sparsely spread population. And you can see the reason for the configuration of these towns is this is Highway 20. State Road 20, it goes up over to Leavenworth. And those are the towns along the area. You can see where we're located.
And Whatcom County is part of this.
Yes. these
So
two
it's
towns-
a two-county, three-county.
Two
Two
counties,
county.
yeah. Yeah, these two have Whatcom County. And that was by design years back when these districts were formulated, back in the 50s. Timber tax was a great place. You can appreciate timber industry was at its peak. There was a lot of revenue that was coming in by way of timber tax to support the district, so there's very little in the way of need for property tax from the district supporters. So forming a hospital district back then had a little different motivation than it does.
Now, the counties are standing and what was the other?
Whatcom, Bellingham,
What is Whatcom?
Turnout.
Roughly where is the Whatcom?
Whatcom County's boundary is right here.
Okay.
what about Brooklyn, Mount Vernon?
Mount Vernon is down here, hospital district 1 is this area here, that's Mount Vernon.
That's just Skagit, okay.
Skagit Valley, and then Skagit Valley Public Hospital number 2 is Anacortes of Eagle Island.
So you don't show any settlements or cities or towns in Whatcom County.
Yeah, there's a couple of them up there, but they're not incorporated. One's Acme and the other ones. There are more deer and coyotes up there than there are people. Like I said, it's largely timberland. It was done back in those days because it was going to be timber revenue to support the districts. Now the timber industry's kind of gone away, by the way. That isn't necessarily the case. So, back in 1991, Skagit Valley Hospital, Hospital District 1, and United General merged into a rough affiliation for 13 years, and they had their model goal at that time was to merge and create a regional hospital out of 2 hospitals, reduce some of the redundancy, being you and I talked about a little bit earlier. Unfortunately, there were some hidden agendas in that whole arrangement, and what was a lot of the goal never come off the ground because of politics. Colloquial attitudes in certain communities just wasn't going to allow that to happen. So after 13 years of struggle, the board of the commissioners voted to split, and in 2004, the restoration of United General began. The reason I say restoration is during those 13 years, there were a lot of things that were shut down in United in preparation for this regional hospital. And so now the district, and part of this disaffiliation came about because the citizens of the District 304 demanded that they wanted the hospital back, things weren't going to go the way they wanted. So that's when I came into this. I joined the district in July 1st of 2003. I was given 6 months to pull apart the merger and set things on this road to restoration January 1, 2004.
What is the next full-service hospital to United?
That's Skagit Valley Hospital, the one we just cleared. And it's 11 miles away.
7 miles.
So, 2005 to 2007, our focus was bringing back the services online and bringing things up to what's considered the standard of care. And talk with your physicians talk with the insurance companies, they have levels of expectation of what you're going to do and what you're going to deal with. Intensive care unit had been shut down during the affiliation. We brought them back online in state of Oregon. We also took a community needs assessment at that time with a shortage of primary care doctors in the community. But there was also a shortage of medical office space. If we were to recruit new doctors in the community, there's no place to put them. There were no offices there. So the pavilion, which you see a picture of right there, was built on our campus to help us in that regard. And then we started looking at where the technology was needed, and then to bring the level of trauma designation. We are up from level 5 to a level 4. Actually, we're now level 3.
Is United General a critical access hospital?
Yes, it is. And that was one of the things we set about doing, because we knew with the disaffiliation, we were going to need some foundation financially on to build critical access. Definitely, you all know, is one way to go and play through as you start out. In 2000,
Was that passed on the provision of the state relaxation of the normal requirements for a critical access hospital during the late 2005, where the state board of health could designate a hospital as critical?
we got our designation in 2004.
Okay, so
Once we had the baseline put in place, then we set about looking at what we could do to improve quality of care, patient safety, those types of things. And as you're well aware, critical access hospitals aren't mandated to participate in the 4 measures of CMS or the other national initiatives. You choose to if you want to, and we chose to because we needed to know where we were at, what our level of performance was. So we participated in all the state and national initiatives, the 100,000 lives lost campaign that the Burbank started. We set in place some wireless communications for quicker response to our nurses and doctors, and we put in a medical dispensing system to improve or reduce the errors on medical medicines being dispersed to our patients. As a result, we were one of the top critical access hospitals in the state of Washington, both in quality of care and in patient safety. One of our persistent problems, and as I was putting this together, I searched for a more recent graph, so I apologize, this one goes from 2008. The persistent problem we have is that we had a growing uncompensated care curve, that's the red line, and our taxes, which is a small M&O line, with the decline in property values in our various sizable jobs. And in fact, flattened at this point in time and remained at this level, which is just a little less than $1 million a year, is what we are bringing in. But as you can see, as of that point, we were at $4 million in uncompensated care. The tax dollars weren't exactly offsetting what we needed.
So you guys know these are being temporary constraints on.
Well, yeah, and of course then, what isn't on this graph is 2009 when the recession hit Washington State. Our uncompensated care at that point spiked to $5.5 million a year. Spiked to $5.5 million a year. And it held at that way until just about 2 years ago.
You got the reason why.
The Great Recession.
Is that?
People being laid off, no insurance. People still get sick and still get injured and still come in the door. You still, at the public hospital, have an obligation to take care of those people.
So does this reflect the change, apparently it doesn't reflect the changes brought about on the Affordable Care Act?
No, that doesn't come into play until 2014.
Right. How is that impacting you?
Well, right now, we're not seeing a whole lot of it. Uncompensated care is flattened at just a little less than $5 million. And I suspect it's going to have even less of an impact than what politicians out there like to think. The reason I say that is because when I talk to the insurance brokers in the community, they're seeing a very interesting phenomenon. We've been through 1 quarter now of the enrollment. The enrollment closure was in March. We're now into August. We've had 1 quarter, and you're seeing that people aren't able to sustain their coverages and take a premium. And there's a decline in enrollment happening.
What about the expansion of Medicaid, which this state did approve? Doesn't that availability of Medicaid offset some of the compensated care problems?
Very little. Because if you look at the number of people who enrolled under the expanded Medicaid program, the majority of people already were undereducated, just agree with them. So as you can see, we had a bit of a low rate, and there was no, our bottom line wasn't there. We were sustaining ourselves in essence at a break-even rate. So what are the other challenges? State challenges your community has. Community is growing, population is aging, chronic diseases on the rise. You see diabetes, for example, congestive heart failure. Physicians are retiring. Our average age of our physicians, when we did our study then, was 54 years. Doctors, when we go into medicine, usually think they're going to retire sometime between 55 and 60. The only reason a lot of them didn't was because of recession, their retirement plans that would get everybody else's, and so we have a lot of people who contract themselves. Technology constantly changing. What does that mean for you? Well, the question is one, do you really implement the new technology? We go through this whole evaluation. Is it truly standard of care? And then if you do it, there's the expense of the technology as well as the training curve that goes with it.
And the delay from the time you're able to implement it and get, which is like existing projects. Big delay in getting information up to date.
Trying to figure out what your lead time is going to be and all this is easy. And then, of course, big hammer that hit us was the changes by the Affordable Care Act. We see that.
Are you part of a accountable care organization?
Pardon?
Accountable care
Let's
organization?
get into that right now. We'll get into that in a moment. Okay, so then we took a look at it, and then it goes back to, all right, with all of that going on in our lives, what's our next, what should be our next action? Okay, well, one of the actions is you should play do nothing, back away and shut down. Okay? That's always an option. Right? Well, what happens if we do? This was some of the things that came back. We went out very cold about come back. Well, we know cost of healthcare is going to increase. How do we know that? Right now, we're the least expensive of 3 hospitals in the country. If we're taken out of the equation, that means when people seek alternative care, you go to another hospital, it's going to cost them more. You know, it's not rocket science, simple math. Access to elderly and poor decreases. We have east of us, as you saw the way the layout of the county is, most of the people who come from up county are lower income disadvantaged folks. That's the poor part of the county. They come to our door. Now, that access is through the road. Emergency services now are being through the road. Preventive services, because we took the high road and we're, even though we had a break-even bottom line, we're investing in wellness and preventive care when it isn't getting reimbursed. Those would disappear. The community, of course, sustains the economic growth. I mean, that's 400 paychecks, they're disappearing. That economy gets the loss. Jobs are lost, you're going to be there. Not exactly the positive scenario.
Now, the access to the elderly is very important since I'm but beyond access, we are able to access facilities and services that anyone else can access. What about special programs related to hospice, palliative care, end-of-life issues, and special programs, for example?
Excellent question. We're 50-50 ownership local hospice program. It's palliative care. Now, we disappear, that puts the other owners on the other hospital to pick up that slot. Question is, are we able to? After all, we're suffering some of the same thing. Perfect. Option, continue the current strategic plan. Well, we know that really isn't going to work because HCA, the Affordable Care Act, has created a whole new environment for it. Comply with the HCA as a solo player, it goes back to all that, creating your own accountable care organization. To do that, you have to have comprehensive services. We're a community hospital, not unlike yours. You don't have comprehensive services. You don't do open heart surgery, you don't do neurosurgery, you don't do all of those things. And that's what an ACO has to have. You have to have that broad spectrum of coverages. And to play in that arena means that if you're going to do it, you won't do it as a solo. You'll do it as one and many partners in an organization. And you'll be a contributing partner in that unit. Okay. So we worked through all of that and we came up with, number 3. Because we became very clear in our community assessment. When we went out and told the people in the community, we became very clear what they wanted. Our services in play as part of what's coming out of the ACO. And all this fed into what our board looked at and what is the responsibility of a public community hospital. One is to assure needed healthcare services are easily accessible. In other words, guarantee access to care. And the second is improve the health of the community. Community being the district, people who live in the district. Now, because of the way reimbursement models have been laid out in the past, in fact, up until very recently, what that meant was that you didn't have a whole lot of revenue coming from doing anything to improve the health. You got paid for everything you did as reactive care. Somebody showed up and wanted you. So there was very little money to be put out to do number two. Okay? But we felt that number one, to be assured, if we were a partner in ACO, the question was then, what kind of partner?
Who's in your ACO besides yourself?
We'll get into that in just a minute. Okay, so this is how it begins. Not unlike what's going on with you. Our board, first off, sit down and walk through a whole vetting process about, all right, who around us would make sense to partner with? Who are the systems out there? And it was more than just, all right, who's the best business to tie to? What's the best deal you can get? It's who's going to be able to make reasonable design of patient care in that organization. So geography played a role. In other words, how far away from some of these people? We had St. Joseph's at East Health in Bellingham, to the north, 25 miles. We had Everett, the Providence system down in Everett from us, that's 35 miles. Then we looked at our out-migration statistics. Out-migration statistics showed that we already had a significant number of people going north into Bellingham there with East Health. And that when we did our front-of-the-line survey of the community, we found that East Health and St. Joseph's actually ranked higher than most other tertiary facility organizations south of us. And so you combine that with the geographical difficulty of getting somebody further away, with the advantages of some place that's already reputable. That kind of started letting units down that road.
Not only transportation going that direction, it's more reliable than transportation going in Everett. So that's
It's exactly right. Anytime you jump on I-5 and you get south from our location, there's a risk. In fact, driving here this morning, I went as far down on I-5 as Everett and took 2 across the 203 and then come down. Because there was no way. I mean, I checked the news at 6 in the morning and they were already having a problem.
hour and a half, 2 hours.
2 hours to get 20 miles.
You also talked about the University of Washington as well, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, interestingly enough, that goes to what your question is that since we did all this conversation, there's an interesting partnering that's happening at that higher level. University of Washington and East Health are now together in a single HCA, who's also then bringing together some other players as well, including Boeing, Mercer, some other big employers. So that's all come together since we began down.
With what office did you coordinate with you guys?
I didn't. That was all done between Peace Health and no. What I'm talking about, agreement, then as a player with himself, I didn't.
Yeah.
So after going through all of that, at the same time, we had, as I mentioned, shortage of physicians. We had gone to Peace Health, to St. Joe's, and said, we're having difficulty with certain specialties. We'd like to have an agreement with you where you would set up a specialty clinic on campus. And hidden in that request was the commission and our administration's thinking that let's try out this relationship with these folks. We had just come out of a bad marriage with another hospital after 15 years of very contentious relationship. We didn't want to step into something. Okay. That was in 2010. Okay. They opened up a clinic with GI, gastrointestinal services in, cardiovascular services in. There was intent they were going to put general surgery, orthopedics, and a few other things in there. But then all of a sudden, down the care said, and the commission and the administration looked at one another and said, no, we can't wait a couple of years. Because if we don't act now, then we cannot be very easily be locked out of an ACO. Because ACOs are not just so many players, because it's going to be the mega HMO approach to things. Government's going to give you a single payment per population. At the top, and it's going to trickle down to players. And whoever's at the top controlling the membership is going to say, I don't want to pay the top two.
That's years, if not decades away, though, isn't it?
No, we're going to look at the pilots that are in place now. I'd say it's probably between 1 to 2 years you see the first ACO. In fact, the government just laid out how much money out of the purchase grants for national pilots. And those pilots are running for 2 years. I guarantee you, before those pilots are done, there'll be people out there already knocking on the door for a payment.
Well, we've discussed the ACO business, and the problem is that in order to pull together an ACO, you need a certain level of population, as you know. The problem is that the hospitals that we were discussing with are so remote that there's really no practical way you can coordinate home services and benefits. For example, Foster and Snoqualmie Valley. That's very little in common, and they're almost since away. But they're one of the 8 or 9 rural-type hospitals that are going to be in our ACO. So this discussion about joining the ACO for overlay has just been within the last few weeks. So we were all set, and I spoke with the people at Foster. They said they were concerned about being in the ACO, although they desperately needed Snoqualmie Valley just to make the population count. Because, as you know, the ACO purpose is to diminish the amount of healthcare that's delivered. And then over time, changing people's lifestyles and using preventative health measures that eventually will produce a more healthy community.
In the broader scope of concepts, you're right. As it pertains to rural hospitals, we flying the onion is just what you're touching on, and that's the fact that rural hospitals are in different worlds, but that doesn't necessarily work. Would you isolate?
That's right. And therefore, there's that,
So the different
gap.
the different format, a slightly different format is going to have to happen with an HCO unless you partner or in some way connect with that 800-pound gorilla.
As that Foster commissioner told me, that she said there is that gap between diminishing demand and increasing the health of the community. And that's very tough on rural hospitals because we need every bed filled and everything filled right now. And the object of an ACO is to empty beds.
Well, that's exactly right, because you're not going to get paid by bed anymore. You're going to get paid by person, second population. So, so like I said, there's a whole different mindset in the reimbursement that goes into that, needs to be considered. So anyway, we went through all of that, and we vetted everybody out, and then we decided, all right, we're going to sit down, we put together a letter of intent with St. Joseph's Peace Health, and started working through the process. The process, in fact, and I shared this with Sheila and Roger, is there's a whole lot of deja vu through the first workshop I had with my board, as we started talking through all what needs to happen, and how we get everybody on the same page in terms of knowledge, understanding, and all the questions that need to be brought together. And we started an excellent path in an excellent way. All those questions you're putting together. Okay? And so you got the employees, the doctors, and the public. Those are your stakeholders out there besides yourselves. And what that necessitates then is set down with the forums. What we did is we established a panel. We had 2 representatives from St. Joseph's, 2 representatives from the district, who then did a brief presentation, or a 15-minute PowerPoint, to an audience. We held these forums in every one of the communities you saw on that map.
What kind of minutes did you
We had between 75 and 100 people show up those. And do the presentation about, here's what we're considering and why. Okay? Now, what are your concerns? And then we step back. If they had a question and we had an immediate answer, we would give them the answer. If they had a question and didn't have an answer, then we'd say, all right, we're going to go research that, and we'll publish that on our website. What we did with the question you all asked is that we put it on our website. We had a Q&A section people that go with the general public or employees, anybody, to go in, there's the question, there's the answer. Okay? And if the person was really adamant, they wanted to hear that answer themselves, fine. Give us your name and your address or your email address, we will send that address to you. Okay? And so that information is out there. And every time we went to a forum, we had somebody of ours in the audience taking back questions and answers. Okay? And then those all got posted within the following week.
So we're going to traffic to that, question and answer that. Forum, we see, what kind of, do you know what kind of traffic, how many people logged in and checked it out, did you,
No.
Okay.
Our concern was how many people were coming to us because they didn't feel they got the answer. What we were going on, we were working on a second section. We were working on the problem side of it. We wanted to deal with the outliers. We didn't have time to read about how good we were doing. We wanted to know those that were dead.
Can we get that presentation with all the meetings?
You good?
Are you available?
It doesn't
You're
work.
a very good salesman, so.
Well, it's not what you want. You don't want to say it. Okay, so then that was that part of it. The other was due diligence. They asked for us, they wanted our last 3 to 5 years audited finances. We wanted the same thing. We wanted to know that they had the abilities to do for us what we wanted to do. The due diligence meant that analysis from both sides. Then we sat down cooperatively and did our own model. In other words, all right, if we come together, what's plan A? Well, plan A is we want to see a critical access hospital with the balance of the services we had spent the last 10 years building remain in service. That was what our commission found.
Okay, so you said that we said commission. So when you said D, this actually said administration or static conjunction, and when it was open public meetings, how did that, so that you had that dialogue, so everybody got on the same page?
That came out all of you. All that. So when we sat down, which is all we commissioners.
Okay.
So when we sat down as a negotiating team, I had a commissioner, a finance officer, me, and the chief nurse. And they had comparable people sitting through us society. And they, because they were part of the panel during those public forums, they heard the community's concerns. They knew what they were going to have to do then to meet and answer those concerns. So that saved me a lot of argument on the table. Okay? The commissioner then would carry that message and all of that coming back during our commissioning monthly meeting. And because that's negotiating a contract, that's exempt under executive session. So that we can sit down and talk about strategies. If you don't want to take the pain to the other side, so that's not a time you want to. And you carry that information back, you have that dialogue, and you say, yep, that's what we want to do, and you can go forward.
It's very important that the truth be the standard of this interaction.
Oh, yeah.
Because what we don't want to hear are good, solid questions coming from the public and spin coming from the proponents of whatever it is you're trying to do.
No. And to that end, it was interesting because we had complaints that would come back and say, why are you putting the same question so many times on the website? Well, it wasn't the same question. It was the same topic being asked a number of different times. And so it had to have a different ways. Exactly. So people would understand what was being said. Okay? And then, of course, tied to the due diligence, the research was the model, like I said. What do we really want? We need the commissioners. Actually, superintendent answers to the commissioners. This is what we want to see. After 10 years of hard work of rebuilding this facility, what it is today, we don't want to see go away. So as long as critical access reimbursement exists, this is what we want. Okay? But we also did a plan B with the help of Excel. What happens if critical access disappears and we have to do PPS? What's that going to do to our ability to provide certain services? That did, in fact, change the service model we were able to do because the level of reimbursement changes. I would propose now, with more that we know about accountable care organizations, there probably should be a plan C. And that is, how are we going to exist in an accountable care organization? Is that going to variable change the model of your services as well?
I couldn't agree more, but it's essential that you have a plan B because that reimbursement for critical access hospitals may indeed go away. Unfortunately, the letter of intent we signed is probably the whole thing could crumble if that happens. It's a provision of the letter of intent.
But also, the whole point of the letter of intent is to reach to the table so that you can ultimately come out with a master agreement, which then binds. Okay? And that's what we did. We came out of the letter of intent, all those things revolving around negotiations led us to a master agreement. Now, master agreement, in this case, we had consciously made a decision we wanted this in two cases. We wanted a master agreement where everybody understood what the model was going to be, that we were going to step forward with an alternative. And then we were going to negotiate the operations agreement that said this is going to be how it works. Okay?
What was the time frame from letter of intent to master agreement?
Almost a year. And you have less time to do that. Not because of any agreement you have in hand right now, but because of the environment it's around.
But because of the fact that we work with you something, the hospital could not meet its commitments of $286,000 per month, lease payments, paying off a $2.5 million letter of intent, all at the time the hospital opens.
Like I said, you have a shorter span of time. Okay, so then the next process, we had the master agreement. Now we need to work into an operating process, an operating agreement. Now here's where the whole thing about the relative details is all about. We don't realize what kind of things they are. Just had a conversation with Ms. Dunn. The finance officer. He disappeared. I was just asking him, he said, tell me how many contracts you got. Off the top, he said, probably 1,000 years. I said, those are probably period contracts. Tell me what your utilities are, your vendors, your suppliers, physician contracts.
I provided 32 pages worth.
Okay, yeah, about 400. That's what we have. 380 pages. Okay? Every one of those contracts has to be vetted with the other side. Do they want to keep that contract, do they want to renegotiate it, do they want to cancel it? And then out of those, there may be contracts that you as a district decide because you are encouraged, as you started working in the secondary mission on that, you may want to keep some. Well, in fact, we decided right up front, we did want to keep at least a couple of them for the collection agencies because we're going to have to do a run out on our ARs, the account receivable, that are still ours after the transition. And we want to keep the people we've been working with before that are our collection agencies doing that work. So right away, we do those contracts. We keep the contracts that go to the other side, and in the middle ground of the contracts, neither of us want to have to give a notice. Right?
And I'm just going to let you know, just for note taking purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was writing the sheet.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a little selfish because I didn't want you guys to read me again.
No, I think we want to make notes on tape.
I mean, because it says policies and systems and things like that, I need to put those on.
Policies, when we got into that was, before we even got into that, when we were working on a master agreement, we did a comparison of mission, vision, and values. We found ours didn't really vary a whole lot between the two of us, because what that does is that sets a stage then is where are the differences in the policies. For example, HR policy. Is there much difference? So then they said, your HR department, their HR department sits down and starts going through it. So what the changes are going to have to do? Because obviously you're going to want your people, when they make that transition, understand what the transition is.
And it should be uniform between the two organizations. Right?
Actually, no, what you do is you decide which is a better policy to go through.
You adopt that for the whole organization.
Now, typically, when you're playing with somebody that's bigger than you are, the majority of that goes the way. That's just understanding. Along with that is what we call positions mapping. We took each one of our FTE positions as we identified them, because our terminology and what a person does in that position is somewhat different from what tertiary facilities terminology is. And for a couple of reasons. One is you get into a larger organization, and they have a position that does one thing. In a small hospital like what you have, you've got people wearing 4 or 5 hats. Okay, so then you've got to figure that out. All right, how does that position map over into that organization? So they have to make an adjustment on how they describe a certain position so it makes sense in their organization that accomplishes what we want in yours. And then there are the systems. understanding your systems, and this goes on both sides of the table. One of the things that became a big bump in the road for us and caused a 6-month delay in negotiations for us was the fact that the other side didn't understand their IT system as well as they thought. And we started approaching what was to be our first transition date, and suddenly the IT on your side comes up and goes, wait a minute, you guys didn't have us agree. In the meantime, transition planning means you bring all of your managers, your superintendents in, and they coordinate with all the managers and superintendents of the other organization in terms of all of the things we're talking about. The mapping, the policies, the logistical workings. How does that all work? Well, if you think about it for a minute, now wait a minute. A good example is medical records. In our medical records department, we had the director of medical records. But medical records also had coding. And then physician financial services also had billing. And those all connected under one overseer. I don't know how it works in your department, probably something similar. But in Peace Health, director of coding, director of HIM, director of billing. Suddenly my one person is interacting with group and trying to come up with plans. I had one person, my quality person, risk management, quality, discharge plans, and I got all done. She was interacting with 5 people in the world. And unfortunately, those 5 weren't talking to each other as well as they should, nor did they understand the relationship among themselves as well as they should. So that slowed things down. So that's why I showed this another theory of running, this kind of like bubbles in space. That's just the way it felt.
What protections did you build in for incumbent staff and force so that there's a rational outcome, but at the same time, you don't go through a long period of morale is down, the best employees leave, because now they're going to be subject to evaluation by the other organization, so forth.
Right. That came out of the positions mapping. One of the things that we found was that we had been operating at a very mean level, staffing standpoint, where, quite frankly, there were only about 5 FTEs that weren't taken in that way. Only 5 FTEs in our organization didn't do over in itself. My administrative and assistant, and so there's that assurance goes into how good you're doing your job, but also how bad you're doing it within that organization. But your larger organization, by virtue of the fact that they're not used to seeing people within their organization wearing multiple hats, are not going to be given to being discharging a bunch of people like that. Because they don't have that in-house knowledge of what you're doing.
In other words, the broader their abilities, the more valuable they are.
That's exactly right. Okay, so the first, going back, just revisiting some of the details for the master agreement. We touched on a lot of this in terms of where are you going to keep people involved. Okay? We had service department meetings, our department heads, public or employees. We had those as a panel of meetings, public forums, pre-meetings going in starting in 2012. Public forums that I mentioned earlier. All of that went into and then fed into the negotiations. All the time, you've got communications going back and forth between the administration and their administration, our commissioner and their commissioner, in their case, the board of directors. And all of the interaction is necessary because of all these Q&As that are coming out. Every time a question comes up, it needs to be an answer, it needs to be posted. You need to make sure whoever asked the question got the answer.
Well, most of this is internal staff level work. What about the transparency to the public?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is that all gets posted for the public. All the Q&A. The pre-meeting is a meeting of the commissioners and the administration as to, all right, what's our strategy going into negotiations? During negotiations, then a number of things happen. If questions come out, they don't know something, you don't know something, you need to find some other. There's some proposals that lay on the table, you don't know for sure that's what you want to do or you don't want to do. So then you have a post meeting with the commissioners and your administrative team, and you come up with Getting that, who's gonna do what, find those answers.
Well, a lot of those negotiations, you understand, having confidence. There's a, what's going on there between what has to be done confidentially and what should be done in, communicating with the public, making, having, open public records, having, meetings.
And that will all come out during the commission meeting. And then as a result of the board of commissioners meeting, there will be a newsletter that will go out, which published both to the public and to our employees as to where we are at with these negotiations and how we're moving. But I have to say, there are certain areas of confidentiality that we do with proprietary information.
That's why we have executive sessions.
Exactly.
Three meetings in executive session, those are closed door.
And the negotiation meetings, we don't have quorum, so it's probably.
Okay. So the way that you work it with commissioner representation is you have a representative for the commissioner.
Yeah, in my case, I have the president of the board myself. Because that carries some weight.
And like the commissioner, that individual commissioner was then responsible for sharing with the rest of the commission.
So we will come back into the regular board meeting, or sometimes we have special board meetings because of timing. And we would have an executive session in which all of us will come to. This is what's happening.
Okay.
And then, of course, after that, then what happened was, we do it, and then you do it again, do it again.
So were those extensively, we would have executive session to share this information, or was it half an hour before the regular meeting when you stuff in?
My,
Sort of a work study was built in that,
it was an automatic part of the agenda. And normally it would be allowed about an hour for that. And if it took longer than that, it took longer. But normally it didn't, because it was very succinct. This is what we're doing, this is what we try to do, this is what we hope to do. And a large part of that is by the time it comes into the board meeting, we've had this post meeting, we've got all this. So that we're ready, then we come together for a pre-meeting. Before we do that, we have our board commission meeting.
now, post meeting is, an executive session or confidential.
Post meeting is just those people that were involved with the negotiations, sitting down and saying, all right, what happened? What do we need to do? That's I have a response, yeah.
Then how we go with the pre-meeting, is that confidential?
Yeah, and that's confidential. What happens is between there, you have all this research and the service meetings that the department heads that are sending out to find out whether we can do this or can't do that. And then all of that's brought back through the board meeting, and I apologize, I probably should put a little link right there with the commissioners' board meeting and executive session for all of us to share. So as we carry into the pre-meeting getting ready, we have everybody on board and we know what we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, that would be good to have a commission icon.
And of course, throughout that, the daily communications that are coming out, trying to keep people apprised, everyone within internally. And then connected with that, there are some spontaneous reactions, information newsletters, those types of things. And then at the same time, what's going on with all this,